It just amazes me the amount of ingredients that are jammed into the products that are pushed in North America, and that's probably why the obesity rate in North America is so much higher than Europe. You see so many people; they're so lean and slender, and they have beautiful skin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They know what's going on; they're onto it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, that's why is North America ever going to catch up? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they want to. The powers
I
that
mean,
be. But
well,
that's for another show.
yes, they're making tons of money off of the effects of it.
You know who made it.
Welcome back to the Wealth Easy Show, where we talk all things wealth, health, and real estate. Today, folks, I've got a real special treat for you. Our guest today is a 30-year veteran as a naturopath doctor. She's created over 3,500 online videos, has over 2 million followers, and is a best-selling author of The Healthy Millionaire. She is the owner and formulator of Vitatree, a natural health vitamin company. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Janine Bowring. Thank you for getting on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, John, for having me. I'm so excited about today's conversation.
I know we've been trying to book you on the show, but you are just so busy with your other
Yeah.
shows and traveling. And I'm so glad that we are actually able to get you on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. Yeah, this is as you can probably imagine, which I'm sure we're going to get into. Yeah, my schedule is pretty hectic. Anybody who does any type of social media, how daunting of a task it can be. And it's one thing to be on social media; it's another thing to keep being on social media and putting out a lot of content. So that takes up a big part of my week for
And
sure.
that is one thing that you do, because I see so much of your content and I'm always like, okay, wow, she's talking about something new today, and I've learned something new today. And there's like, I've got all these questions, but there's so much content that you put out. I can't even answer or ask all these questions. But I think I want to find out is, what inspired you to be in the naturopathic medicine? But before we get to that, why don't you just give our listeners a 2-minute bio on yourself?
Oh, yeah, great. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom of five, and of course, a wife and entrepreneur. Um, Got into naturopathic medicine years ago after the loss of my mom, and it's something that I went to university thinking I would become an eye doctor, and um, but always at the back of my mind was her whole journey with cancer. And at the time, I was actually in high school, and I was very much influenced and loved reading a book that she was reading. And she was in remission for a number of years. And this book was written by a naturopathic doctor. And so my friends in high school, they would call me up, and, if they had cramps or whatever, and back then they called me Dr. Janine. It was so funny, like, Dr. Janine, okay, what do I do for this? Right. And I would open up this book, and I that different foods and things could actually have an influence naturally on the way that you're feeling, common, daily ailments and complaints. And that was kind of inherent in me. And my mom, being from Europe, always did things a little bit more on the natural side. Now, unfortunately, she's succumbed to her illness. She did the traditional treatments and things, but that was always, part of who I think I was, and how I was brought up with natural medicine. Now, fast forward, I'm in university thinking I'm going to become an eye doctor, and I learn about, a friend who was also studying to become an eye doctor, an optometrist, said, "Hey, there's this open house at the naturopathic college. Let's go check it out and see what it's all about," right? And then we went to this thing. She didn't end up becoming a naturopath, but I just knew this is where I needed to be. So I switched gears, and then, the rest is history. But it really had to do a lot with, my upbringing, and just what things that came naturally to me, and really wanting to help people and educate people about, because there's so much information, as you know, probably, and a lot of misinformation in this world of natural
Mhm.
medicine. Really wanting to, I am sort of a nerd at heart, and very studious, and I love to study, and I look at a lot of research, and the up and coming research, things that people haven't heard before. And, when we talk about even conventional medicine, even naturopathic medicine, things that I was never taught is part of what I teach, because I think at the cutting edge of how we really do get healthy is a lot of stuff that people certainly are not talking about, especially on social media. And that's why I think I've garnered such a following over the years, is
Mhm.
that I tell a different story, not what you've necessarily heard before.
And that's what I think, not just myself, but your followers, we love your content. It's because it's refreshing. It's not a doctor just writing a script and pounding medications down our throats that sometimes in the long run is just not even good for us. The stuff that you promote are all natural remedies. And I think that's what a lot of people today are gravitating toward. And I love your content. I love your videos. What type of education training prepares you for the current role as a natural health educator? And you do spend a lot of time doing product formulation. What type of training do you have to do and prepare for that?
Yeah, so my training, I did my undergrad in Bachelor of Science, University of Waterloo, and then of course the 4-year program at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. So that was sort of the basic training to become a naturopathic doctor. I practiced for a number of years, saw my patients, but to really educate myself around this whole new world of formulation, and it's self-inflicted. It's not that that it's anything that's taught in school. I look at research papers and all of the nitty-gritty, and there's a lot of biased information out there, so you have to kind of know. And I've done it for so many years now, it's sort of second nature to me. But you kind of have to look at who's putting out a study, and what is, if it is biased, not biased, getting and garnering some good information, and really telling the truth as to why certain things happen in our bodies in terms of the disease processes. And often it's the exact opposite of what we've been told. Like if we talk about sunlight exposure, topic that I talk a lot about on social media, where I'm told to cover up, wear sunscreen, wear your sunglasses, protect yourself, protection. The sun's going to kill you. It's going to wrinkle you and do it. And there is some partial truths in that. But unfortunately, the total opposite is true. And I was just looking at a research paper before we came to air right now with the podcast about the benefits of melanin. I like melanin in our skin. The more we build, the more protective it is against cancer. It's a master antioxidant. It's a master anti-inflammatory. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why are we being told to stay out of the sun when we know that something like melanin and building that tan in our skin is so protective, right? And that's what I like to educate people about, because it's the missing link for a lot of people. A lot of people are not feeling well, and they're very sick, and that's why I go that extra mile to get the information that people really need to hear, not necessarily what was taught in school. So that's what makes me a little bit different, I think.
My wife and I, we just returned from 10 days down in Florida, and, obviously Miami is very hot at this time. And
Yes.
I'm always saying, pass me the sunscreen, because, the first few days you don't want to burn. Obviously that's not
Right.
good for your skin. But then my wife said, she read a study where sunscreen is actually now bad for you. Years ago, they're saying, put sunscreen on, protect that skin and protect your from getting burnt. Now they're saying the opposite, that sunscreen is not good for your skin. It's carcinogenic. Like,
Yeah.
what do we believe? Like, what have you discovered with this? Maybe it was something that my wife saw on your TikTok or
Maybe.
Instagram.
Maybe. Let's hope. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's something. I have another book coming out very soon, and it's something that I wrote about, a whole chapter on this topic. And it was discovered in the last couple of years. They really looked at the carcinogenicity of certain very specific ingredients in sunscreens, and sure enough, yes, they do and have been linked to cancer. So that was big in the news. But beyond the toxic component of certain sunscreens, what are you actually doing when you put something on your skin that is going to protect from your own body's ability to protect itself? And what a lot of people don't realize is that our skin actually makes its own sunscreen. And that process happens when it gets the right amount of natural light at the right times of day. So one of the best things that you can do is to go out into the sunlight and expose as much of your skin, bare skin, without sunscreen, without ideally without, chemical lotions, and that's a whole other story, right? All of the chemicals and toxins that we have in our cosmetics and beauty products. But with bare skin, no sunglasses, and go out in the morning as close to the sunrise as you can. Now, what that does, it's sending a signal of that light coming in your eyes, sending a signal to the brain. And now your brain, as we know, is the master controller of everything in our body, is going to tell your skin, and now your skin as well at the skin level, is actually going to make its own natural sunscreen from histidine. It's made from an amino acid, histidine, and it's called urocanic acid. So that's just one mechanism, how the wisdom of, being in tune with nature and getting out into nature and not covering up as much. I mean, sunglasses, that's a whole other chapter that I wrote about in my book too, is like, that's the worst thing you do. If you cover your eyes, you're telling your brain that it's a cloudy day. It's not going to make, you're not going to make your own sunscreen on your skin. So these are the things that, sunscreen, that's a huge misconception that it's going to protect you. It's actually can do more harm than good. If you look at some of the research with vitamin D deficiency, if you're covering up, you're not getting that proper UVB from the natural sunlight exposure. Now you're lacking vitamin D. What the research shows is that most people that actually get skin cancer have vitamin D deficiency. So how is that possible, right? How is that possible? You're using sunscreen to block the sun and you're getting skin cancer. Like it's just one of these things that you have to kind of shake your head and like, what are they telling us, right? And that's what I do, is I educate so that people and do your own research. I mean, I love for people, and I have so many doctors that are following now on social media, which I love. I want you to do your own research. If what I'm saying is not true, then I'll correct myself. But because I do so much research to, back up what I am educating people about, then, you've got to make your own decisions. At the end of the day, everybody wants to live a long, healthy, wealthy life, right? You've got to make your own decisions. And hopefully that is, you're following and trusting the right people in terms of how you're getting that information for yourself.
But what about if you went into the sun? You talked about first thing in the morning. Yes, that's great. But what about you go out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun's high, it's at its peak, you've got no sunscreen on, and you feel your skin starting to burn. Like, is it worse to get a burn?
Well, yes, I would never say go out and fry yourself in the sun.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But you can build up your tolerance. So if you do this, and I mean, as Canadians, it's difficult for us because we have so many months of not seeing that, unless we're traveling south, to build up that solar shield, that solar protection, then some people call it the solar callus on our skin. So there's ways around this. If you can structure your day, and this is, when we traveled recently again to a hot climate, we came out of cold Canadian winter, bang, you're in the sun and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? My eyes, nothing is used to this, is to structure your day. So maybe like the siesta, how they do in a lot of, European countries, that you go inside when the sun is like the solar noon, usually from 11:30 a.m. till 2-ish p.m. You go in, maybe you're going to do something else, go have a nap, go read in under the shade, whatever. Listen to your body's own cues, because everybody's tolerance, everybody has different skin types. Everybody's tolerance to the skin is going to vary, right? I do make my own natural sunscreen though. So that's what I use. So you can make, and I do have that recipe so people can check it out, on my social media handles, and you'll just search my name and natural sunscreen recipe. And that's what I do use. And it is remarkable because it's going to help to offer some protection. But what do I do myself? I try to go inside. I'll seek shade. So be in the shade, cover up at a certain point when you've got to follow your intuition here as well. When you've had enough and you're just like, oh yeah, that's enough. Like that's good for today. Then you're going to go and like the animals do. If you look at the lions, and if you've ever, looked at mammals in the wild, what do? When they've had enough sun, they go into the shade, right? Yeah.
I just find I'm just such a sun worshiper. I'm out there from 10 till 5, getting all the sun, turning my chair around to where the sun is to try and get the most amount of sun and
That's
come
the
back
best.
looking dark.
Love it. It's so good. It's so good.
I know. Hey everyone, it's John. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask that you please subscribe to the show by just clicking the subscribe button right here. I'd really appreciate it. It helps grow the show so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. If you're already subscribed, a huge thank you. When you subscribe, you're going to get access to the program before anybody else does. So if you would, just click subscribe right here. Thanks so much, and welcome back to the Wealth Eazy Show. What are some of the core principles of naturopathic medicine, and how does it differ from conventional medicine? Because a lot of people get confused, between what's a naturopathic doctor versus a regular doctor.
Yeah, so naturopathic medicine, one of the cornerstone, philosophies and sort of stamped in stone, what do we follow, is called docere. So docere is in Latin, doctor as teacher. So I think this is sometimes lost in conventional medicine, allopathic medicine. You go to your doctor, the doctor is God, whatever the doctor is telling you. This is, you're in and out. It's a billable, 15 minutes. And not that I'm judging, because don't get me wrong, allopathic doctors absolutely have their place. But it's a little bit different because when you visit, if you've ever visited a naturopathic doctor before, we take a little bit more time and we get a lot more information because everything is connected in the body. We're not just focusing in on, let's say, the headache. We're focusing in, okay, when did they start? How are your bowel habits? How are your sleep habits? How's your stress habits? What's your sex life like? Like, there's so many questions that we can ask as a naturopath to sort of get in and narrow in on as to, what were your toxic exposures? Where do you work? Do you get fresh air? How much water are you drinking? Like, there's so many different aspects around, let's say, the symptom that, and that's another one of the cornerstone principles of naturopathic medicine, is to treat the root cause of the disease. So when I ask you, if you come into my office and you're my patient, I'm asking you all these questions. I'm trying to, like an investigator, trying to find out, okay, what is the root cause? Do you have that headache because of, a backed up bowel? You're constipated. You don't have enough fiber in your diet. Is it because you're dehydrated? Is it because you have a lack of magnesium? Is it because, you've got the headache because of a lot of stress, or maybe you're addicted to caffeine and you're overdoing it with, the stimulants? I mean, there's so many different roads to get to a certain, what we call a symptom. But as a naturopath, I think we're a little bit different because we're more holistic in the way that we're looking at the etiology, the cause of whatever you may have manifested as your symptoms. And often the symptoms are just sort of, if you think of the tree and the branches are kind of the symptoms. The tree, the trunk, the roots is, okay, what is the root cause? And that's how I think we're a little bit different. And we do take usually a lot of time. Usually first visit with a naturopathic doctor is at least an hour. Sometimes, I would spend we book an hour, but sometimes it turns into a 2-hour visit, right? And everybody in the waiting room is waiting and they're angry. But you understand when you see a naturopath that time is well spent, because we will ask you questions that your doctor often has never asked before. And that is, but doctor as teacher, going back to what I first said, is, I think, the cornerstone, difference is that I'm not here to tell you to do X, Y, and Z to get rid of your headaches. I'm going to educate you as to why drinking water is going to help your kidney function and your detox mechanisms. And you see what I'm getting at? So of course, all naturopaths practice differently, but that's how and I can speak for myself when I was seeing my patients, how I like to, navigate that relationship with a patient, because that's what it is. You are entering into that mind-body connection and entering into the mental emotional connections as to why you manifest certain symptoms as well is super important. At least it was to me when I was seeing my patients. I think that's what I write about in my books as well, is that mind-body connection is so important. If you're not asking those questions of your patients, if you are a practitioner, you're a doctor, you're listening to this, then you're missing a huge part of why people are not doing well.
And I think it goes back to being in this country, maybe not just this country, but other countries, where doctors are overloaded with patients and they just don't have the time. I know if I go in to see my doctor, let's say, I don't know, my arm hurts. Where is it? Show me where it hurts. Hurts here. What'd you do? I don't know. I was swinging a tennis racket. Okay, writes me a script. Like there's no, I just think doctors do this process of elimination just very mildly. It just kind of sounds like medical doctors today are more of an extended sales force for pharmaceutical companies? Just to write a script.
Well, you said it. And here's the caveat to that, though. A lot of holistic practitioners, naturopathic doctors, functional medicine practitioners are similar as well, right? So that's why I think when you enter into this relationship with any practitioner who you want to help you, hopefully that practitioner, you find the right person who, especially if you have a diagnosis, some kind of medical condition, maybe a bad prognosis, especially if it's on the more serious side, that you are engaging in someone who's going to ask the right questions. And maybe as a patient, you're asking yourself the right questions, right? To kind of delve in. And that's why a lot of people that follow me now on social media, I put it out there in whether it's my show, my live show, when I'm on television, I put it out there like, ask yourself, if no doctor practitioner has asked you this question, ask yourself, like, what is it? How did this start? Was it a trauma, a stress, an accident, something happened? Like, when did this start? And how do you need to investigate this for yourself in a different way and find resolve for yourself? And, that's why I love engaging with all of my followers, because we ask those questions, we talk
Mhm.
about these things, and so many, of the people that interact and they comment on my videos and things, they're like, wow, I got it now. I got it. It was something that you said, Dr. Janine, that like nobody ever put it to me that way before. And I never really thought of it that way. That's why I'm so inspired to do what I do every day. And I put so much time and effort and money and investment into,
Mhm.
everything that I do, is because I want people to have those aha moments, whether it's your shoulder's been bothering you for 50 years. Okay. So why, right? You're getting the headaches. Why? Who's giving you the headache? Like, these are the things that we talk about, that mind body connection and the deeper seedings. Like, sometimes it's so simple. Dehydration is like a big one. People think they're drinking enough. They're not. If you have a coffee, you got to have another 2 waters to back that up, just to replace and sort of balance that one coffee that you had. Like, simple stuff, but
Mhm.
and that could be causing your headaches or constipation or whatever, right? So it's all about, that's why I put out so much content, because there's got to be something that's going to connect. And I use my intuition, like, let's be honest, I use my intuition a lot, as well, especially when I'm speaking live, that, oh, there's somebody that needs to hear this right now. Okay, I'm going to talk about this and go down this path.
Do you think the foods today that we see out in our grocery stores, they're definitely not the quality that we had 20, 30 years ago?
No, not even close.
And I think a lot of the foods today are creating so much inflammation in our bodies, and that's a real disease on itself. You agree?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And a lot of this can stem back. I mean, there's so many different culprits out there in terms of the pesticides, the herbicides, the fertilizers that are trapping, especially in the minerals like magnesium. Like, everybody's got a magnesium deficiency, even if you're eating the most healthy diet. Because of our modern world, one thing is the EMFs in our environment, of course, from everything that's plugged in around us, and the Wi-Fi and cell phone signals depletes our magnesium. But because of fertilizers and, modern farming, and this whole thing with glyphosate, which is, that herbicide that they use for wheat, corn, and oats, and most of the non-organic grains, let's say, especially grown here in North America, you've got this glyphosate issue, which is super toxic, and then it's going to cause these problems in your gut and cause leaky gut syndrome. And now you've got this inflammatory condition happening because of what we're eating in our foods. Now, the other thing, unfortunately, with eating a lot of, non-organic, is the other pesticides and things, which is going to be, increasing your toxic load. But the big thing that people don't talk about is the disconnect between eating what grows in your environment, so locally to where you're living right now. You got to think about that. Like, if you were to have your own farm, what would you be able to eat, and what would you be able to keep over the winter? I mean, we live in Canada, so that becomes more challenging. And this is why I educate people about, like, eating a banana in Canada is not a good thing in the middle of winter. They don't grow. Can you grow a banana tree in your backyard, John?
No,
Of course not, right?
no.
Even in the summertime, and we would be hard pressed. Maybe we could, but And so there's a disconnect now because the sunlight programs, it's like a barcode. The sunlight programs a certain energy and it's imprinted in the water of, the fruits and vegetables that our own DNA can recognize in our own mitochondria. Remember the energy producing organelle within our cells? So that is programmed. So that whole connect between sunlight, the magnetism of the earth, and what we're actually ingesting, they need to connect. So let's say it is the middle of January here in Canada. I have my protein shake and I toss my banana in there, right? Which I love. I love the taste of it. But now there's a disconnect. And that can cause the inflammatory process and disease right there because your body and your cells, your microbiome is going, what is this? This is a banana. We're not in like Ecuador right now. We're not like where they grow, right? This is a problem. So this is what I educate people about because it's often missed as much as you're eating a healthy diet. And I find that people that are in the health and fitness industry, they think that they're doing great, but then they're always inflamed and sore and not so great, right? In terms of longevity. And, that's always the goal is to live a long and healthy life, but people are getting things a little bit wrong. And when you start to make these changes, like a big thing, I'm sure we're going to talk about weight loss, but with leptin. So we're going to go there in a second. I'm sure. I know you're going to ask me that question.
Yes.
Yeah. So this whole
Are you
thing
reading
about
my notes?
no, not reading your notes, reading your mind, maybe, but no. But in terms of, that whole inflammatory story ties into our hormones as well. And this is where, making the right choices and just tweaking things. I'm not like when I put out information and when I do these podcasts and people ask me these questions, I'm not like saying that you have to change everything tomorrow. No, that's impossible. But like baby steps, right? Especially if you're dealing with something with your health or you want to get the weight off, little baby steps towards being healthier and more in tune with nature, which is what my next book is all about. Being and having that connectivity with what's going on outside of you, because your internal environment, of course, has to translate properly with your external environment. And when you make those connections, it's like, okay, everything is good in the world again.
Mm-hmm. You brought it up, so let's go there. Weight loss.
Okay.
It is
Yes.
it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you've got so much misinformation out there. What really is the most healthiest way to take off weight? Not these. There is no pill. There's no magic pill to do it. Although companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to market these pills, and people buy into it because they're looking for a fast, quick way. They don't want to go through exercise. They don't want to plan their meals. But
right.
I've been bodybuilding since I was 15. I've 40 something years. You work out constantly. I know your husband does. My wife. Everybody's working out.
Yeah.
What really is the correct way to lose weight? Because there's a ton of misinformation out there.
Yeah. Well, let's start with not diet or exercise. Okay. Which is where everybody goes first, right? Is diet, exercise. We'll get there. It's your environment. Okay. And did you know that when you're living under artificial light, so for instance, here in your studio, in my studio here, the artificial lights, especially the more modern ones now, like back in the day when I used to work on TV and they had those hot lights on, they were actually healthier. The ones that like fry you, like you're sweating on the set because it's so hot. Now they've switched everything over to these LED energy efficient, which are higher in the blue wavelength of light. So the sun, as we know, if you look at the rainbow, right, it has all these different wavelengths as we see them as different colors. Well, the blue, it's not like the lights have to look blue, but the wavelength of light that's coming into our eyes, remember we talked about how important our eyes and our skin is, that is higher in the blue spectrum. Now that blue wavelength of light actually raises our blood sugar level.
Oh.
So we don't even need to eat a carbohydrate. We don't even need to eat, something, the sugar, the cookie, the bananas, whatever, the healthy carbohydrates, we don't need to eat anything. Our blood sugar is going to go up just because of being indoors under artificial light. The more screen time you have, right, that's going to have that influx of your increase in your blood sugar level. So that's one thing to consider because hormonally, we know, that whole thing of, calories in, calories out, how much. So, eat less, move more, you're going to lose weight. Well, that story is not so true anymore in our modern world. And that's, of course, what the research shows. That's not what, like, people are still singing that song of Seco, right? Calories in, calories out. That's an old story. We know that hormones play a big part, as well as our sleep schedules, our melatonin levels. So, sleep, optimizing your sleep. Here's where the connect is with your metabolism. If you're not having a good night's sleep on a proper schedule, so a good circadian health in terms of when the gets up and the sun is rising and you're waking up as close to sunrise as possible. That changes throughout the seasons, as we know, depending on where you live, and going to bed and lights off and down as the night is setting in and it's getting cooler, sleeping in a cool room. If you're not having that good regular night's sleep, unfortunately, your hormones, and especially your thyroid hormone, can be compromised. And this is going to affect, as we know, thyroid helps to run, it's our master, gland that helps to run our metabolism. That can be offset now. So that is one implication in terms of weight loss. It's important, right? And having that proper connectivity, of course, with our external environment, which we talked about already. The other thing is, eating a healthy diet is always going to be important. I'm never going to say that, okay, run out there, eat as, calories in, calories, doesn't matter. No, that's not what I'm saying. Everything in context, right? You still have to eat a healthful diet, hopefully local to you. So just like the fruits and vegetables, what's available to you in the season that you're in, not overeating, being satisfied, eating on a regular schedule. So I don't recommend snacking, that whole snacking thing that, how bodybuilders back in the, let's say, I don't know, 90s, the 2000s, all these bodybuilders, and a lot of them still say it on social media. I like shudder every time I see it. It's like, you've got to have your 3 meals and snacks in between to keep your metabolism going. No, that's going to mess up your leptin signaling, as well as something called your migrating motor complex in your gut, messes up your gut health. So I don't recommend snacking. 3 square meals a day. For some people, 2 meals a day. The whole intermittent fasting thing, I know it works for a lot of people. Most people are doing it wrong, though. You should be fasting. If you're going to do the intermittent fasting, fasting your dinner is going to help with the weight loss. You always want to have a good, healthy breakfast, because that's telling your body, again, this connection with your outside world and your inside world. It's telling your body, when you have that good, healthy breakfast, that everything is okay in your world. You don't need to worry about, seeking out food. Think about caveman time, right? If you wake up, there's a bit of a stress response that's happening if there's no food for yourself or the family, that your body's going to hold on to excess fat for survival, to keep you warm, to keep you somewhat insulated until you can actually find food again. So by fasting your morning breakfast, which is how most people, and when I was seeing my patients, how most of my patients, intermittent fasting, I'm going to fast my breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. I fast. It's just something that, a lot of people naturally, they just don't eat breakfast. Not a good idea, especially for weight loss. So you can optimize that weight loss by fasting your dinner more so.
So the intermittent fasting, because when I did the intermittent fasting, I would stop my dinner at 6 o'clock and I would not have nothing. I would go, it was the 16-8, or sometimes I would sometimes try to do 18-6. I would try to go have my morning, my first meal at 12 noon. So 6 o'clock dinner. And then I do my cardio. I do my workout in the morning. I have my black coffee. I might have a pre-workout with some BCAAs, but that's all I had in my system until 12 o'clock. You're saying that that's doing it wrong?
Yeah, doing it wrong.
Oh.
It's going to increase over time. Like, it might work for a week or two, right? If you're trying to, like, I don't know, you've got an event coming up, which I don't recommend. It's like this dramatic, fast weight loss, but some people do it, whatever, right? Yeah. But if for the long term, for longevity, I mean, it's for me, and my thoughts have changed as I've gotten a little bit older, right? Back in the day, when you don't think about longevity when you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, right? You're not, but now my end game is something different, right? So when I'm looking long term, the fasting benefits of fasting your dinner in terms of keeping my hormones healthy. So I'm not just talking like female or male hormones here, for the guys or for the women. I'm talking about leptin and your leptin signaling and that whole inflammatory response. So people that, and here, let's make a connection here for people that have a chronic inflammatory something, it could be a sore knees or hips or whatever, shoulder, whatever it is, that could be related to doing your intermittent fasting wrong. So skip your dinner. If you're going to do intermittent fastings and you want to get some weight off, skip your dinner. Don't skip your breakfast. Your breakfast is I don't know, as a kid, we grew up, your breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? Yeah,
That's all I heard growing up. Breakfast is the
absolutely.
most important meal. Don't
Uh,
skip it.
it's true. It's true.
Interesting. So get up. I like to beat the sun up. So
Yeah.
I'm up 4:30, 5 o'clock. I want to beat the sun up. And I get my cardio in around 6 a.m. I do fasted cardio. Now, what's the rule on that? Fasted cardio. Some people say,
Yeah.
oh,
Uh,
you can have a meal and then do your cardio. But then they say, if you have a meal, then the first like 20, 22 minutes into your cardio, you're only burning off the last meal. Where if you're doing fasted cardio, you're
yeah.
actually going into your stored fat cells. What's the rule on that?
Okay. So the rule here, you're going to be shocked. John, you might have to change your schedule. is it's better to do cardio. So the way that your circadian biology is optimized for cardiovascular training is between 4 and about 7 p.m. So
Really?
yeah. So when your cortisol levels are high, because your cortisol, of course, peaks in the morning to sort of start to shut down your melatonin, your sleep hormone, because we want you to wake up, right? So if you're doing fasted cardio, first thing in the morning when your cortisol is high, you're putting actually a little bit too much stress on your cardiovascular health. And again, depends what your goals are. If your goal is to lose 5 pounds in a little bit of time and you're training, for something 2 weeks from now, that's one story. But if your end game goal, like the way that I like to educate people from my own personal outlook on life, is longevity and your health span and how well you're going to age and protect your heart and your arteries, is to switch that up, is to not do that. You want to be like meditation, relaxation, maybe a bit of yoga, maybe a walk in the morning, have your big healthy breakfast close to around sunrise. Amazing, like amazing. I love that you're doing that. So, so good. But your cardio, you're going to get better benefits, especially for your cardiovascular health. And this goes back. This is not me saying this. This goes back like ancient traditional Chinese medicine. Your optimal time for that type of more vigorous exercise is in the late afternoon.
Is this why a lot of Europeans can eat and eat and eat and they're so lean? Because mostly when I'm in Italy,
Yeah.
my wife and I, what we do is after dinner, we go for these nice long walks.
Oh yeah.
And what time is
Exactly.
that? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
8 o'clock at night.
Exactly. Because think about it. You're on vacation. I mean, I'm guessing you're on vacation, right?
Yeah.
You're nice and relaxed. You start to follow your own body's intuition. It's natural rhythms when you shut off all the garbage that we have in modern world. If you're a working person, whatever, entrepreneurs, you shut that all off and then you start to really like, oh yeah, this is nice. It's nice to wake up and feel relaxed and like look forward to the day and be relaxed. And you sit down and you actually sit down and relax for the meals. I mean, now you're secreting more digestive enzymes to actually break down that food. Plus, not to mention in Europe, there's standards for food and it's usually farm to fork. We don't have to worry about as much of the pesticides and the glyphosate and all those things in terms of our North American food, and how that can cause a lot of inflammation for our digestion and weight gain and all those things. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that inherently in certain cultures, that's what they do. And here's the other thing: when you're on vacation, most of the time you're spending most of the time where? Not indoors. Usually it's outside.
Yeah.
And so again, getting more of that natural sunlight exposure, it does wonders for your metabolism and your ability to actually, metabolize those foods, your carbs, your fats, and your proteins.
So I've got an incredibly busy schedule, and I find that most of my free time is in the morning because once my day gets going, I'm go, 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 sometimes right till 8 o'clock at night. My wife has to come into my office and says, hey, are you going to join me to watch something on TV? Or
Yeah.
6 o'clock, hey, come in, dinner time. Like I don't have time to go drop everything and do cardio from 4 to 7, although it's the optimal time. What about getting up, having my breakfast, going to the gym in the morning, and doing my cardio after I've trained? Is that
You could do that. You could do that. just be mindful if you're training in the gym of the artificial lights. And I would never say, because I train, like I go to the gym sometimes in the morning as well.
Yeah.
Then I try to do some other type of exercise between 4 and 8 p.m. That's kind of how I counteract it. Just to make sure that I'm optimizing a bit of cardio in that window. And that could be
Okay.
like a little walk around the block. It doesn't have to be,
Like
intense, like,
like 30 minutes
and
steady pace walk. Don't have to do that.
yeah, yeah. And to be honest, a lot of people are exercising too much, I think, too.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your physiology and what you have the energy for. But yeah, just be mindful of not overdoing it with the cardio, especially in the morning. I still do weight training in the morning as well. Don't get me wrong. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's because of my schedule. It's probably very similar to yours, but yeah, well, just try to, or you could just try to switch it up for a week and just prioritize that window, maybe do a bit more of the work in, because here's the thing, when you wake up in the morning, in terms of your brain power, it's usually optimized in the morning. Right. And then when you get to like 2-ish p.m., as your cortisol levels are starting to go down and your adenosine levels are changing as well as the day goes on, your actual brain function isn't as optimized in that time. And that's why I think movement and blood flow around 4 to 7-ish p.m. There's a reason for it, from a circadian biology perspective.
Is that why first thing in the morning is actually the most optimal time to do meditation?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because and with the light too, because the light of the day and the sun coming up is the signal that life is good, everything is good in my world. I can tap in, I can get grounded, I can get whatever messaging I need for the day of what. I mean, this now we're going to a different area, right? We're getting out of the physical body, going into that mind body connection, spirit connection with. Yeah, you can tap in, because I think we all. And we don't talk enough about this in medicine, and we certainly don't talk enough about it on social media, that we all have a purpose. We're all here. We're not just here to spend time.
Yeah.
There is a purpose. And the more you tune into that, I think the more healthy you're going to be, the more wealth you're going to accumulate and manifest for yourself and for your family and for, your downstream families after you. Right. And here's the thing, like, we all have something that it's not all about taking, it's about giving. And what are we giving? And and in order to manifest good things for yourself, you're giving. You always give more than what is, you're asking for in return. And at least that's one of the principles that I live by, my husband and I, and that's what we teach our children as well. Always give more than what you're expecting to get back. And I think in the morning time, there's that beautiful ability to just sort of tune into, maybe you are trying to manifest something
Mhm.
financially or a new home or a car or whatever. And in today's world where everything is so crazy and difficult for a lot of people, right? If that's what you believe, it's all on
Yeah.
your mindset. But
Yeah.
it's something that there's a beautiful opportunity in the morning as the sun is rising or as close to sunrise as possible, that you get grounded. It doesn't take long, but just get grounded and say, yeah, like, give me the goods. Like, this is what I say to the universe, to God, whatever you believe in. Like, give me the goods. What do you want from me today? Right. And that's how I go forth into my day, into my world, into, the way that I create, the way that I get inspiration for different videos to post and things. It's just a different, way of perspective. I think people that have depression issues, mental health issues, a lot of anxiety, and they're not always tapping into that. It's bigger than who you are and yourself. And the morning time is a great time to be able to kind of tap into that.
You know, outside the studio, we're friends, and we had a lovely dinner not that long ago. And you told my wife grounding mats. You just talked about grounding, being grounded, and you mentioned
Yeah.
about these grounding sheets. Well, we got it. And can I tell you something?
Oh, please tell me.
My wife says I have never had a more deep, better sleep. And I find too, like, I get into this very deep, relaxing sleep, all because of this grounding sheet. And like, she loves it
Yeah.
so much. She took the sheet off the bed and brought it with us to put in the hotel where we were staying.
I
She's
love
like,
it. I love it.
I'm not traveling without this thing.
I know, isn't
And
it great? Yeah.
I know, and I couldn't believe, like, when you're telling us at the dinner, like, yeah, this is so good for you, and I get this great sleep. I'm like, how does this work? I'm telling you, after the first night, my wife was raving about it so much that she bought one for my son, and she's got this other one now that when we sit on the sofa and we're
You're
watching
grounded.
TV, we're grounded.
I love it.
Explain to our
Uh,
listeners the benefits of being grounded and this new technology, because it's incredible. Like, I couldn't think that this sheet, like, would give me such a great sleep.
Yeah, isn't it? I know like mind blowing. So, of course, the
Yeah.
best way to ground is to take your socks and shoes off and just go stand outside on the ground and on somewhere where you can ground. So, that is ideally on concrete that doesn't have a barrier underneath it. It's on sand on a beach, it's in the water. Like, one of the best places to ground is going for a walk on the beach right at the water's
Mm.
edge as the water's
Hmm.
coming up, of course, without shoes. And
And it's very
uh,
romantic too, with your partner walking along
well, of course. Yeah, it's nice.
that.
It's nice, but notice how good you feel,
Yeah,
right? Notice
great.
how good
Yeah.
you feel because you're pulling up and what grounding is, and of course on grass as well. So if you've got, grass in a park, wherever, your front lawn, your wherever, even in your basement. So if you're on poured concrete in a basement, that is usually grounded as well. If you're in a body of water, usually that's grounded. So yeah, these are the places that you can actually ground. Even usually your kitchen tap sink, if you hold on to that, that's why some people say, "Oh, that's why I feel so good when I do my dishes." Well, I don't know about that, because you're touching and you're grounding. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with
I
that
thought
one.
that's what
But
dishwashers were for.
yeah, right, right. But the whole thing about the Earth is that it's electromagnetic and there's electrons in the Earth, and electrons are very anti-inflammatory. They make us feel good. When we're diseased, when we have a lot of inflammation in our body, we have more positive charge. And this is something that we want to counteract that positive charge. Think of a battery. You want more of those electrons to come into your body. Well, they happen to do that through the bottom of our feet. We actually have sweat glands on the bottom of our feet to create a little bit of moisture. Whenever conductivity, if you learned in your electricity class and the teacher said, be careful, water and electricity is very dangerous because it's, so conductive. The same is true for the bottom of our feet. And that's why grounding through the bottom of your feet, standing on these surfaces, pulls those electrons into your body. And this is what the studies have now shown, is that it's very grounding, very anti-inflammatory, helps with all kinds of ailments, helps with your sleep. And so the grounding mats that you can purchase and actually put on your bed, you can sit on them. I've got one on my desk at the office where, like, when I'm touching my computer, my hands are grounded. I bought them for my kids when they're playing video games or whatever. Not that I like them doing that, but most kids are going to be playing video games at some
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
That they have one that they're sitting on. So, and that goes into, so the thing is plugged into the ground of your electrical socket. So, here in Canada, we have two prongs that are the electrical.
Yes.
Then the third prong is the circle one underneath. That's the grounding setting. And then that's where this thing is plugged into. Now, there's other ones that you can plug into, and it's actually ideal to put the grounding rod outside into the actual earth. And then there's a wire that comes up to your grounding pad. Now, that's a little bit hardcore for a lot of people. So usually into that electrical ground. And you have to test your electrical socket. So usually it comes with a little tester to make sure that it's actually grounded and it's safe for you to put it in there.
That's been fantastic. And we also talked about red light therapy. And this is like I don't think it's a new thing, but it's a new thing where we're starting to hear about, and we're actually starting to see retail spas actually offering red light therapy. I had, not long ago, I had a chiropractor on here, and he said he sits in front of his red light probably 15, 20 minutes and meditates in front of it each day. What are the
Yeah.
benefits of the red light therapy?
Yeah, so this is fantastic. And red light, the ultimate red light, I have to say, of course, is from the sun, right? So that's why I talk so much about, on my social media about getting natural sunlight exposure, especially as the sun is first rising and sunset. So how you just feel so good, and you feel, especially here in Canada, that hot radiant heat, which is infrared, far infrared, and of course the red rays from the sun just feel so healing. It's so amazing. the same is true. So they have specified in these LED lights, in, different companies make these red lights, that they've specified that wavelength of the red, which is known to build your collagen. It's very anti-inflammatory, helps with your moods, which is amazing. Helps with reproductive health. Helps with back. They've done some studies in terms of immune system and irradiating the back, and that helps with blood glucose levels even as well. So that red light therapy is amazing. And I find I bought a panel, I'm going to say 2.5 years ago, and through the last couple of winters, I found it was amazing. I mean, we have very dreary, dark, not a lot of sunshine
Yeah.
winters where we live, right? And I just found that I'm not prone to depression or low mood or anything, but as a
Mm.
Canadian, I think we can all
Hmm.
agree, like come mid-January, February, it's like, oh my, this is just not feeling good. Like we just collectively don't feel good because we don't have that sun. And it really just helps to get you through, at least personally for me. And I love what it does for my skin and energy levels. If I have a choice, I'm going to go out in the sun. Obviously, I don't use
Yeah.
my red light as much throughout the summertime. But let's say I bang myself or I've done something at the gym, and I definitely am going to hold my limb or whatever issue that I've got in front of that red light to help to speed up the healing as well.
Amazing. Let's talk about Vitatree because this is such a fabulous company, and you've formulated vitamins, but they're not just they're it's very different from the vitamins line that is currently out there. What led you to create Vitatree, the product line?
Yeah, so it actually came out of like serious frustration with some of the best, supposedly the best and high end vitamins and supplements that I was actually prescribing to my patients in my naturopathic practice. And I wasn't always getting the results that I was looking for. So I would prescribe, let's say, a multivitamin or a fish oil or whatever. And, my patient would come back and say, yeah, how are you feeling? Oh, yeah, I'm okay. Like, I wasn't getting like, yeah, doc, I feel like $1 million. Like, this is like fantastic. I love, and some people would come back and say, oh, that didn't really agree with me. I'm burping up the, taste of fish. I can't
Mm.
take that. I'm sorry. And, these were expensive vitamins. So I felt bad always. And I thought, okay, I have to learn a little bit more as to what am I actually prescribing here. And, I got some inside information from the industry, which is kind of interesting how, like, again, manifesting and how things can find you. I wasn't looking for information about vitamins and, how they were made and the backstory and all of this stuff, but this information kept finding me. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I did tours in different vitamin companies and I thought, this is very interesting. I really need to do my due diligence here and, feel confident when I'm prescribing to my patients plus myself. And at that time, I already had a couple kids and my husband, and we're all taking vitamins. So like, what is going on here? So I really started to do that nitty gritty and look at, what are some of those ingredients, those excipients or non medicinal ingredients that it says in Canadian and US labeling laws, it has to say on the label, okay, this is also in, besides the active components, this is also in the vitamin. And then I was shocked to find out, like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. All these chemicals, not to mention that most of the vitamins and, B vitamins and multivitamins were synthetically made, usually from an offshoot of the petrochemical industry. I'm like, how can this be? Like this, there's something wrong here. And I don't want to take that stuff myself anymore. I used to actually have like some little side effects from taking, these high-end, supposedly great professional brand multivitamins. So it really made me do a lot more research. And then yeah. And so, my husband and I, one day were having a coffee, and a lot of companies were approaching me because I was very successful in my naturopathic practice. And because I did, beyond supplementation, I did a lot of mind body stuff as well, and really delving into and herbal medicines and homeopathy and delving into the root causes to why people were unwell. So I had like thriving practice. I didn't think that, okay, I'm going to start spending time on formulating vitamins. I mean, that wasn't in my head at all. Well, my husband and I were having coffee one day and a lot of companies, and we were taught, were approaching me to represent their brands and to do a bunch of stuff. And my husband actually got a little bit irate and he's like, why? Like, why would you want to help out these other companies? And then this whole epiphany came upon us. And, the universe was saying, yeah, you can do it yourselves and do it so much better. Right. And then I
Hmm.
had, the magic sauce of what I wanted to create because it didn't exist. I mean, even the so-called, whole food vitamins that were in the marketplace to this day, they're called whole food vitamins. They're not what you think they are. I mean, they're still synthetically derived at some point. So very different. So that's how I went into formulation, thinking, okay, I'm gonna make these for my practice, for my family, for my kids. I'm gonna make whole food vitamins without the fillers, without the flow agents, none of those nasty ingredients that shouldn't be in vitamins. And, do make it for my practice. I'll share it with my patients, and that's it. And then, to make a long story short, had a meeting at the television network. In the US, of course, they have, QVC, HSN. Here in Canada, we have TSC, the shopping channel. Had a meeting there, and yeah, the rest is history. We just celebrated our 15-year anniversary the other day, last week, of being on
Congratulations.
air there. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
So it was such a great journey, and I never would have, you know, dreamed that it grew. I mean, we started with 4 products. Now I think we have 53 products.
Wow.
So like constant, as you know, from the wealth side, reinvestment in our company,
Yeah.
reinvestment in our company,
Yeah.
reinvestment in our company, and so many different, people are often trying to pull us in different directions. Oh, invest in this and do this. No, 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 no. Like keep reinvesting in what we believe in, right?
And in what you know.
In what we know. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's
So
that's your that's what I call your investor DNA, investing in
yeah,
what you know.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's been such a wonderful um, you know, we've had a good track record and continue to do good and help people. When I was on television last week with our anniversary visit, I was brought to tears a number of times actually, because I'm
Mhm.
there for 3 days. We have a number of live shows. I was brought to tears by the end. The last show, if anybody saw it, I don't know. There's not archived or anything, so hopefully nobody's gonna go see it. But I couldn't like with like cameras off, like turn like I couldn't keep it together. I was like speechless. I was just so grateful for the entire experience of being on live television and all of these testimonials. We brought callers live to air into the live shows, and they were, you know, just so grateful themselves for having, tried and taken that chance on my formulations, the Vitatree products, and just life changing stories. Like it was overwhelming and so wonderful, so heartwarming at the same time. It was fantastic.
It's amazing. Congratulations on the success, and I know you guys are gonna have a lot of continued success.
Oh,
What
thank you.
what separates your product from like the top stuff that's out there? Like what type of toxins are we actually seeing in some of these good vitamins? I walk into stores, you got Jameson is one of the big brands out there. Why are these putting toxins in these vitamins? Is it because it's cheap?
Yeah, exactly. So it cut costs. So I actually have some of them here if you want to see them. So I have
Yes,
little my yeah, okay, good.
absolutely. Because
So
we
yeah,
take a bunch of vitamins too, and maybe I got to sit with you and show you all the stuff that we're taking and change everything over.
yeah, well, yeah, and it's baby steps at the beginning, because first it's the education piece that people don't realize that, you're
Yeah,
taking XYZ vitamin, you want to feel better. That's why you're doing it. That's why people take supplements, is to supplement hopefully what they're already doing, in their diet and exercise, whatever, to feel better, get more energy,
yeah.
whatever it is. But yeah, here's what people don't realize is that, let's start with, this is the big one that I do a lot of demonstrations on, is magnesium stearate. And it's a flow agent. So what it does is it goes on top of the raw materials. Let's say it's your vitamin B, or it's your multivitamin, maybe it's your herbal medicine, maybe you're taking MSM, chondroitin, and all that stuff for anti-inflammatory because you got aches and pains. Okay. You know that it's good, but you didn't read the label, and it says this magnesium stearate. Well, magnesium stearate is that flow agent. It's never been tested to be safe for long-term human consumption. It's a chemical.
Wow,
So
wow.
people think, they mistake it for like it's magnesium. Oh, that's fine. It's magnesium. Or it'll say vegetable stearic acid or vegetable magnesium stearate. It's not fine. And everybody has to make their own decision, of course, for their health, but it's something that you got to be aware of. And for some people, it causes heart palpitations. Other people, it causes gut distress. Like, you got to be aware of these things, right? So that's one. Of course, we don't use any of what I'm going to show you in any of the Vitatree products. The other big one is the filler. So microcrystalline cellulose is a filler. Most, I'm going to say like 97% of the vitamins out there have this microcrystalline cellulose, and it's a flow agent. So they use it to fill up the capsules or to make the hard tablets. And that's something that, again, it's made from wood chips. So yeah, exactly. And you're paying for this, and it's a fiber. So if you don't have good gut health, this causes gas and bloating for some people. You got to ask yourself, okay, I want to spend my money on what I know is going to work for me and what's the good stuff, not just the filler, right? Imagine if I sold you a bottle of wine and 3/4 of that bottle of wine is water. Like, how happy would you be? And you
Not.
spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what they do in the vitamin industry, because you don't know, like, you don't do the math. They don't, okay, here in the labeling laws, here's another little point that I don't always I'll often talk about, is that they have to say that it's in there. So for instance, you're going to see non-medicinal ingredients. It's going to say these things: magnesium stearate, microcrystalline cellulose. They don't have to say how much. So they don't have to put the milligram amount of how much filler is in there. Now I do the math because there's all different types of capsules. I do the math. I know about how many milligrams, and it's crazy what I've discovered over the years. And that's why the price tag often can match, right? You're like, oh yeah, this is on sale, the big box store. I'm going to get this big bottle of whatever for joint stuff. And I just laugh when I go to those stores and it's like the checkout and I see these people like putting these big things of vitamins on the conveyor belt. I'm like, oh, if you only knew. I just keep my mouth shut. If you only knew, right?
Yeah.
Titanium dioxide, silicon dioxide, really quickly. These are other ones. This one, titanium dioxide, is now banned in Europe.
Wow.
And yet it's still allowed here in North America. So you got to do your research. So of course, none of my formulations have any of this. And that's why when I started on television and just like simply explaining it. Now, when I explain this to you, John, doesn't that make sense that maybe you want to think twice about ingesting something that's banned in another country or that's never been tested? Like, it just makes sense, right? But people just don't know.
Oh,
And that's why I
absolutely.
educate. Yeah, I just educate. And then you make your own decision. At the end of the day, you're going to spend your money on your vitamins that you're going to put into your body, right? So you make that decision for yourself and for your family.
I just find that the US and Canada, North America itself, is just so lax on what they allow in certain products. We brought back, when we were last in Italy, my wife brought back a jar of Nutella for my son.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I could eat that with a spoon. And when we took them and we put them side by side, and when you compare the Nutella, the European product from Italy, and you compare it to the US,
I
it
know.
has less than half of the ingredients in the European than in the North American. They just put so much crap in this. And it's not even that. You can look at ketchup. You look at most products that you find in North America and in Europe, and the labels will have less than half of the ingredients.
I know. Yeah.
Why is this going on?
Again, because here in North America, they can get away with it, right? The food industry, agriculture. I mean, it's dollars and cents at the end of the day.
But it drives up healthcare.
Of course it does. But healthcare is a big moneymaker. We know that, right?
Well, in the US it is.
Well, I think in Canada too.
Canada too, yeah. People say, oh, you got free healthcare. I'm sorry, it's not free. It is not
it is
free.
not.
We
It is not.
pay for it through our taxes, and it's quite a hefty chunk. It's more than 50 cents of each dollar that's brought in income is going into toward healthcare, and then it's not that great, to be honest.
Yeah.
It just amazes me the amount of ingredients that are jammed into the products that are pushed in North America. And that's probably why the obesity rate in North America is so much higher than Europe. You see so many people, they're so lean and slender and they got beautiful skin. They're walking.
Oh, yeah.
They're walking
Yeah.
after dinner. Their food is has got no GMOs in it. It's all organically grown. And their laws, just like you said, like that one product there is banned in Europe.
Yes.
Well, right? They know what's going on. They're onto it.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, that's why is North America ever going to catch up? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they want to. The powers
I
that
mean,
be. But
well,
that's for another show.
yes, they're making tons of money off of the effects of it.
Yeah.
We're about running out of time, and this has been great. How can people find you on your social media, and how can people find Vitatree to go in and start ordering some of these fantastic toxin-free and vitamins?
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So vitatree.com or .ca, depending on where you're at. And of course, on social media, you can find me at Vitatree. There's some information there for the actual products. But for my own social media handles, it's at Dr. Janine, Dr. Janine Bowring, and at J9 Naturally on TikTok. So yeah, I'll be happy to connect with everyone who connects. It's amazing.
Amazing. And you got a massive following on YouTube too. I know there's tons of online videos on YouTube. And you've got your own podcast too?
Yeah, we do. So on Tuesdays, I have the Dr. Janine Show, which goes live every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have a follow-up Q&A on Wednesdays. So I'm out there. So please connect, everyone. And yeah, it was great talking with you, John, today. It was fantastic. I love your questions. Amazing.
Thank you. And when's your new book coming out?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. Very soon. We're working on so many other things that go with the book. So yeah, probably looking at next year, but early next year,
Fantastic.
realistically.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy person, but I'm really glad to have you on the show and hoping we can do it again, because I only got through maybe a quarter of the questions, because this has been so great, because one thing led to another and I didn't even get through a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's more content for another show.
Okay, sounds great. It's awesome.
Fantastic. Guys, if you like this episode, please subscribe, share it to others. It helps build the algorithm, but this has been a wonderful show. Guys, my book is finally out. It is on amazon.com.ca. It is on Barnes & Noble. It is in chapters: Wealth Without Wall Street, Taking Back Control of Your Money in a Rigged Financial System. Grab the book. It is going to teach you some stuff that you will not lose. You were not going to learn in schools. That is all for today. Take care of your wealth and your health.